This is the Puck Junk Podcast.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Puck Junk Hockey Podcast. I'm Sal Barry. I'm joined by former NHL player Mike Brown, who was a right wing in the NHL from 2007 to 2016. He played in 407 NHL games, scoring 19 goals and 17 assists, while also accruing 778 penalty minutes during the regular season. Mike played for the Vancouver Canucks, Anaheim Ducks, Toronto Maple Leafs, Edmonton Oilers, San Jose Sharks, and Montreal Canadiens. Today he resides in the Chicagoland area and owns and operates Michael S. Brown Performance, which offers high-end sports training. Mike, thanks for speaking with me today.
Yeah, no problem. It's good to be here.
So what's your earliest hockey memory?
I guess my earliest hockey memory would be my first on ice memory altogether. I started out rollerblading, and it was pretty good at rollerblading. But my brother brought home a flyer that said to learn how to skate on the ice. So my mom took us over to the Skokie Stadium, and me and my brother, we both put on ice skates and pretty much flew from one end to the other and smashed the boards. Got back up and Steve Glickman, the program director there, said to put him in a program, teach him how to stop, and we'll be good hockey players. So I think for me it was just the first moment on the ice, which was a pretty funny one for us.
How old were you at the time?
I think I was 7.
Okay. Yeah, and I know Mr. Glickman. I've also done some hockey lessons, adult hockey lessons at the stadium. Mr. Glickman has brought you up before, and I don't know if you knew Coach Lou Heller, but he also mentioned you during one of the adult classes. Probably brought you up a few times. Oh yeah, he got his start playing in Skokie. They're so proud of the fact that you were with the stadium for a little while.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. They did a little bit, and they raised a banner there a couple of years ago. So it has the big orange banner in the corner of the rink now. So everybody that goes there to coach in our organization, or anybody that knows me, they go there and take a picture with the banner and send it over to me. So it's pretty funny now.
That's got to be pretty cool. So you went through the Skokie Flyers youth program?
Yeah, I started out in their so that's right at the time when I went into their Mite House program. Mm-hmm. I was there for a few years, and then I think when my family moved to Northbrook, we tried out the Northbrook program. It didn't really work out so well, and went to another program. And just before that, going into AAA for playing for the Chicago Young Americans. And I think that was my second Pee Wee year.
Now, at the time, was CYA playing at Heartland, or were they playing elsewhere?
They were playing at Heartland.
Oh, okay. Those of you from not from Chicago, CYA stands for Chicago Young Americans. It's basically the elite high school age Chicago area hockey players. A lot of them end up on the U.S. national team development program. So what was that experience like? Then all of a sudden now you're tagged like, hey, you're a pretty good player, and now you're playing with this elite group, and you had some pretty elite teammates.
Are you talking about the U.S. National team?
Yes, but actually, I guess also CYA was. That's a big deal.
Yeah, so we start actually that the AAA hockey starts as young as you want. They go all the way, I think, till the squirt program. I started off a little bit later. I think it was Pee Wees or the first year at Bantam, and it was interesting for me because it was the first step of for better hockey, and I did make the team pretty. It was last on the team. I had to go through a big, a race and this kind of course, the competition to get on the team last. But I ended up making it, and kind of showed a lot of dedication to stick with it, and went through. But we had pretty good teams when I was growing up. We ended up winning nationals my Bantam major year, so my second year Bantam. And with that said, there were good players, so it was tough to find a spot on a good team. But I kept finding my way to get in there. And when it happened towards my first year midgets, I would have played for should have been a midget minor. But I skipped my midget minor year and played midget major for the Chicago Chill, and that's when I got looked at and I got scouted by the U.S. national team development program, and they found me a home in Ann Arbor to play for their team the following year.
Do you remember some of your teammates on the national development team?
I remember all of them. There's a handful of them that succeeded, and some of them didn't really go past that. I think we all got a college scholarship though.
Who are some of the players that listeners would probably know?
Ryan Suter.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, goalie Al Montoya.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Jake Dowell.
Oh yeah.
Who else would have been there? TJ Hensick.
Were you a Blackhawk fan growing up?
Oh, of course. Yeah, growing up in Chicago, I was a huge Blackhawk fan.
Who were like some of your favorite players in your during your childhood or young adult years?
I like watching Jeremy Roenick, Chris Chelios, Steve Larmer, Dennis Savard, there's Steve Smith. That era was pretty fun to watch.
Yeah, the 1990s.
Yeah.
Is it true that Roenick gave you a call before your first game?
Yeah, so I knew I was fortunate enough to know most of the Blackhawks with my dad owning a Harley dealership. So with those guys buying bikes, I was around these players quite a bit. So on a personal level, yeah, they gave me some good luck and congratulations at the same time, and gave me some advice along the way.
That's awesome. One other question I have about your youth hockey before we talk more about your pro career is that you were in the 1999 Quebec International Pee Wee tournament. What is that experience like?
Yeah, I mean that's pretty cool. We're so young that we don't really realize what was actually going on, but it's a pretty cool tournament. It's pretty cool. You win your state. The best team in your state. They wear the jersey for that NHL team, and you go and play a high end tournament. But I think we're 13 years old, 12, 13 years old at the time, and you're going to put basically a Blackhawks jersey on and play against all the other NHL teams that are the best players from the other states. But it was a fun experience for sure.
5 years later, then you were playing in the World Junior Championships for Team USA.
Yeah, coming out of I was playing at the University of Michigan at the time, and I was fortunate I got selected to play for the World Junior Tournament in North Dakota, and that was a pretty fun time because the U.S. team had won it the year before. Our stadium we played at was at University of North Dakota there, where there was brand new Ralph Engelstad Arena, and the winning team from the year before gets the home locker room. So we were pampered pretty good. We didn't do so well in the tournament, but it was a good experience for me.
Now, you got a goal, though, against Belarus in one of the games.
Yes, I do.
So, tell us about that goal.
I remember it very clearly. I was actually skating down the right wing, and I just went to go shoot it, and I don't think the goalie even knew that the shot was coming off because it went far side on the ice, and he didn't even move. So it was called a lucky goal or whatnot, but I was pretty pumped. It just kind of snuck in right on the far side on the ice. So that was pretty much it.
You miss 100% of the shots you don't take, right?
Exactly. I even whiffed on it too. That's why it was confusing.
So the goalie thought it was maybe going elsewhere. Yeah, that's
or not even coming off my stick.
So then you played, I know, and this was around the time you were playing for the University of Michigan, and you played under the legendary coach Gordon Red Berenson. So what is he like?
No, he was great. He's a good guy. He's the type of guy that doesn't yell. He gets his point across just by looking at you, and just what he's thinking even without him saying it. So it taught me a lot. And going back to college was great because I was in the U.S. program where we were learning how to fight and box and protect ourselves and play a hard-nosed game. And then I went to college where there's no fighting allowed, so it kind of let me hone in on some skills and play the game a little bit more, think the game before entering a professional career.
You and your teammates, just as college hockey players, are you more in awe of the guy because he was in the NHL for like 12, 15 years, or are you more in awe of the guy because he was a coach for so long?
To be honest, I think it's a mixture of both. I think his experience as a player and as a coach does wonders for that. It speaks for itself. So when you look at a guy like that, it's like you can't tell him he's wrong. You listen and take in whatever he has to say.
When you were playing junior hockey, were you more of the type of guy willing to drop the gloves in junior hockey, or was that something that came later, like when you became an NHLer or AHLer?
No, that started the U.S. program. Because we were put into a situation where we're 16, 15 or 16-year-olds, and we're playing against guys that are up to 19 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So when there's fighting allowed, these older kids are going to come up and look at us like, who do you think you are? And they brought in a boxing coach for us, and I excelled with the boxing program. I liked it a lot. So with the style of play I was playing,
Hmm.
running around and hitting hard and playing aggressive, it was the fights were coming to me pretty much, and you had to defend yourself. So it's either defend yourself or not, and I wanted to. So that kind of came in at that early moment.
Gotcha. So when you played college, why did you decide to leave after 2 seasons instead of finishing out the 4 years with University of Michigan?
Well, I felt like when the opportunity was there to take it, you
Hmm.
know, I don't see why not. If I was offered a contract by an NHL team, by an NHL club to go and pursue my dream as playing in the NHL, and if the opportunity came knocking on my door, why am I going to say no?
Right. Why wait? Just go for it.
I've seen guys, they wait and they want to finish out their scholarship, but then, at that point, 2 or 3 years later, that organization who drafted you might not have that same opportunity, that same slot open, and that might have been taken with the last couple of years, and then you get him, that guy turns into a veteran, and then now you're stuck with nothing.
So then you were drafted by the Canucks and made your NHL debut at the end of 2007. What do you remember about your first game with the Canucks, your first NHL game?
Well, I remember getting called up because there was an issue where one of the Canucks slashed someone on Minnesota, and they didn't really have much toughness on Vancouver at the time, so they called me up just as like added protection, something, being coming into this game that they were going back in Minnesota, predicting like a rough game.
Hmm.
So I got fortunate that that happened, and I just remember going in. I remember it was actually funny at the time because they had Derek Bugard, and I was coming up, and I was thinking, this is crazy. I don't want to face off against this guy. And before anything can even happen, I remember the coaching staff pulling me aside and telling me that I'm not here for Bugard. I'm just play my game and relax and just play aggressive and be there just for support. And I actually ended up fighting Aaron Boros on that team, and man, it was definitely a pretty cool moment playing the first game, first fight, first game. It was pretty wild.
How'd you do in that fight?
I was throwing a little wild. I mean, this is the beginning of my professional fighting. It was my first NHL fight, so I'm like, a little nervous at the time. But no, we exchanged some punches, and then I think I picked him up and body slammed him down. But it was definitely fun. Adrenaline's running.
You went WWE on him.
Yeah, I did.
You also got your first goal that season. What do you remember about your first NHL goal?
Well, it's interesting because my first goal actually came 2 games later, so it was my third NHL game, and it was right back in Minnesota. So I had my first fight in Minnesota, and then I had my first goal in Minnesota again, which was my third game, and that was another really cool moment in my career. And that was just I think it was a pass across, and Lucas Krajicek shot it from the point. I was in front, tipped it, and I think it just went 5-hole. It was a tip-in goal. I remember being pretty excited about that.
Do you remember what goalie you beat?
Nicholas Backstrom.
Nice. You played for quite a few teams, like 5 or 6. Let's see, Canucks, Ducks, Leafs, Oilers, Sharks, Habs. So 6 teams. So which of those? Because I know you were except for the Canadiens, you were with them for 1 season, but most of these teams, you were at them for like 2 or 3 seasons. Which one maybe stands out to you as your favorite? I mean, I know they were all special in different ways, but maybe which is the one where you look at where you say this was really the pinnacle of my career, or like the best years, or maybe just my favorite years for whatever
Yeah.
reason?
I think you said it best, is they're all different in their own ways, but I could say something about each organization. Stemming from the first organization, Vancouver, them giving me a chance, giving me a contract, letting me in, giving me whatever it is, having the faith in me and calling me up and letting me play and all the above. So that was just the start of my career. And then going into Anaheim, I'm playing a little bit more. I'm established a little bit more as a veteran player. I get my first one-way contract for 2 years. I start establishing that NHL player type vibe, and then after that, it's just each organization was different in its own way. And Toronto was getting into Canada, back into Canada, and the fans liking my mustache and the way I play, and just adding a little bit to my repertoire. And I think the Canadians liked my game a lot more than the Americans did,
Hmm.
and that's why I ended up playing for 4 Canadian teams and 2 California teams. But San Jose was nice, and the guys on the team were there's cool players on the team, and I was fortunate to play with some pretty cool Hall of Famer guys, Niedermeyer and Pronger, Solani, um, all of Marcus Naslund, Trevor Linden, Joel Thornton, Patrick Marlowe, all those names are cool that I can look back and say I was part of those organizations and part of those teams.
You mentioned mustaches, and you had some pretty interesting mustaches. I was going through your player headshots, and the one when you were with Edmonton was kind of unique. What was up with that? It kind of had like, if I remember correctly, it kind of had like right angles.
Yeah, you know what? I always played around with it. It was funny. I mean, I've always liked facial hair. I've always had a little bit of facial hair in my beard, but after playing with the guy George Peros and just talking with him, it's like I remember Wendell Clark said it the best in Toronto. I saw him after a game one time, and he's like, you know what? This is the only way for a hockey player to reach the fans or do anything because you got full equipment on, you got helmet, you have everything covering your body except for your face. So for me, I actually just came in. I cut my hair. I shaved in a mustache after growing a beard for a little bit in the summer, and I was like, you know what? I actually don't mind this. And I remember going into Toronto, and they just made a big deal about it. And once that happened, I was really not able to shave it off. So I just ended up keeping it for a while, and I got used to it. But then going into Edmonton, I don't know. I changed it up. Like I said before, I like changing things up, so it just made it interesting, and I just turned it into a curled up mustache instead of a Fu Manchu.
Is it true that tough guys will sometimes grow facial hair to look more intimidating, or is that just a rumor?
Oh, I'm sure some people think that way. I never really looked at it that way. I just liked it. It was, like I said, it was a way to reach out to the fans and people. It gave them some. We're entertainers if you think about it. We're entertainment. We're getting paid for to be an entertainer, and people are coming to watch us to be entertained. So if it's something that's going to be either funny or something them to look at, then so be it.
You were willing to fight before you went to college hockey, and then you had a pretty easy transition back to being able to drop the gloves. One thing I always found interesting, though, is how many guys, like you mentioned Peros earlier, and another guy that stands out to me, Sean Cronin. UIC had a hockey team here, and a guy named Sean Cronin who played for the Winnipeg Jets. He was really good NCAA or CCHA player, and then he ended up being a tough guy for the Jets. And I always find it interesting how some guys can just make that transition from college hockey where you don't fight to like NHL enforcer where you do fight. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Well, players like us, I think you find a way to make anything work. And if that's what the role be and that's what they need, then that's what I'm going to do. And I was the type of player to do whatever my coach wanted to do to get to the next level. And once I got to the highest level, do whatever was necessary to stay there. So, and different coaches have different models and different playing styles. And every year I felt like communication was a big key to success. So I would ask my coach what they wanted. You want me to play more? You want me to play more of a rat role? You want me to fight more? If we had a team that didn't have a lot of toughness, then they were probably going to be knocking on my door to be adding that toughness. And if we had a team with a lot of toughness, then maybe they wanted me to play a little bit more. So the players I think that were able to adapt are the ones that had the most success.
And then according to hockeyfights.com, you got into 95 fights in the regular season during your NHL career, another 13 preseason fights. Does it maybe one or two of the fights stand out to you years later as being particularly memorable?
No, I remember all of them. Nothing in particular. I think, I hear from a lot of people. I coach now too, so all the kids and parents, they always laugh and joke when I got in a team. They pretty much look at my YouTube fights before they even know who I am. So I think for me, it's like the ones that have the most views on YouTube are the most interesting ones, and it would make sense that that's the ones that people are watching, which are the most exciting ones. So, every fight for me was a fight, so it didn't really matter how it went.
Do you remember who you got into the most fights with during your career? I have the answer right here. I'm just curious if you remember.
I'm going to guess Konopka.
Yeah, you're right. It's 6 fights. Why did you and Konopka fight so much?
I don't know. I think it just happened like that. But we also played for the same conference teams or the same division teams. So when we were traded and moving around, we were in the same division most of the time. And when you have a player similar to your playing style, you're probably going to end up having a bout together. And if we're going to play that many games in a regular season, you're going to be seeing each other a lot more.
I want to change the subject. I know that some hockey players when they were growing up were into trading cards, and other hockey players when growing up, they were into the NHL hockey games. I'm wondering if you were, as a kid, were you into the trading cards at all, or were you into the NHL video game at all, or both?
Yeah, I was involved in both. I remember I had a big drawer full of trading cards. We had a ton of cards growing up, and also video games. I used to remember throwing controllers back and forth between me and my brother and smacking us upside the head with who's winning and losing and cheating and all the above.
Do you have maybe a favorite card when you were a kid, like a card of your favorite player or something that stands out to you?
No, I mean we just always collected. We always wanted to find the Blackhawks cards, and all the ones that we knew stood out to us because we knew them, and it was cool collecting their cards.
What was it like seeing yourself on a card years later?
It was definitely pretty cool. You know, it's cool. Just following your dream your whole career and collecting stuff as a kid, and then pursuing that as an actual player is just cool. You get to play in the arenas. You get on you get on TV. You get on the cards. All the stuff that you dreamed of. You're living it. So it's all pretty cool. And for me, I never really let it get too much to my head because I didn't want to be too high on it to let it slip away. So I always just wanted to grasp on and not think too much. So for me, it wasn't really that big of a deal at a certain point.
What about the video games? Did you ever see yourself in one of the NHL video games years later?
Yeah, so what's funny now is I got two boys. They're 8 and 5, and they are constantly playing, and they gotta try to get me to score goals. And they put me on the first line with Joe Thornton and Patrick Marleau, and every time I score, it's hilarious because I don't have too many goals in my career, but seeing myself score on there and they crack up that Dad's playing, it's pretty cool.
So basically, your kids are still playing NHL 12, right? That's like
15.
15.
They stepped it up. They got 15.
Yeah, like no, we can't get NHL 20 because I
No,
won't be
no,
on that
yeah,
roster.
yeah. I won't be on there unless you create a player or something.
Oh yeah, that's true. They could do that, but it wouldn't be the same. I know one thing that my podcast co-host wanted me to ask you is that he said that you're known for your training and your work ethic during your career. How does training differ between, say, the U.S. national team, college hockey, and pro hockey? Like maybe what are some of the differences in those levels of training?
Well, there's different stages of your body type too at your ages. So for us, for me, yes, I did. I came in. I took pride in the strength department. No matter what training camp I went to, no matter what camp I went to, I always wanted to be number one. And whether it was running, cardio, strength, lifting, whatever, like skating drills, I always wanted to become first. Which majority of my career I was first in all training in every NHL camp I went to. But that's different for every level. At the U.S. national program, you're 16, 17 years old. You're just starting to develop your muscles. You're learning Olympic lifts. We're getting strong. We're working out before games. It doesn't matter. It's all about development. Then going into college, it was it's starting to become a business, and they care about wins and losses and championships, and you're more of like maintaining because you're a little bit older, but you can lift heavier, but you're doing it more maintenance throughout the year. And then going into professional career, you're given all the tools, but it's kind of up to yourself. And yeah, we have team workouts, we have team lifts, and there's training camp. It's harder testing, but it's you come in, you should be in shape. If you're not in shape, then they're going to get rid of you. So it's all up to yourself. And I just always took pride into that. When I decided to take over a training company when I was done, it was because I tested number one throughout all my career, and everybody asked me what I was doing, and I always did some outside the box training stuff. Never worked with a trainer and said, if everyone else is doing this, I'm going to do it because I wanted to do it my way. So going into my business, I wanted to just give back and give the opportunity to kids to not train, let's say the right way, but train my way.
So let's talk about that, the Michael S. Brown performance. So what does your company do, and who are your clients, and like what are the different sports that you train? Because I understand that it's not just necessarily hockey.
I work for the rink for Glacier Ice Arena, and I do their strength program. So I work with about 20 teams, from mites to midgets. And then the outside stuff that I work with is a couple teams will either go through Glacier and I'll get, the CYA team. I got a couple CYA teams that come in, and there's a high school team that wants to train. And then on the outside of that, I teach, private stuff. So if it's a small group, like I said, dating back to the U.S. program where I learned how to box, I like boxing so much that I took a liking into like the methods that I was learning it from this first step to the last step. So I like to teach my kids how to throw a punch, and not only for protection purposes, but actually for it does a lot more. It does hand-eye coordination, it's cardio, it's core work, and it's speed. When I do this stuff, I mix in everything. I mix in my strength program, I mix in boxing skills, and a little bit of everything.
Your Facebook page about your company also mentions at the end, combat training available.
Well, those are the terms I use. That's basically the terms I use, because I don't want to say hockey fighting available, because yeah, we can do that, but I pretty much do everything. So I take the kids on the ice and I'll work with hand pads on the ice. If you want to just do hand-eye coordination off the ice, I'll take the noodles out and we can work on some hand, grappling and throwing. And I call it combat because it's more of like a generic way of working out.
I just want to ask one other question about your career. Obviously, your first goal is pretty memorable. Your first game is pretty memorable. Your first fight is pretty memorable. Do you have maybe another hockey memory that was memorable to you?
My playoff experiences were pretty memorable. And San Jose, even Anaheim, we lost in Game 7, second round against Detroit. And playing in a Game 7 game, it's just those are pretty cool times, and knowing that you're going for the cup. And I think we should have actually won it. Anaheim won it the year before, and that was the year I got traded to Anaheim, and us losing there, it was kind of a bitter moment. But and then it goes back to San Jose when we were playing in LA in the first round of playoffs. We're up 3-0. We end up losing 4-3 in the first round, and LA goes and wins the cup. But those playoff games were special. It was a cool time.
And then I know that all teammates are special, but do any teammates in particular stand out to you, maybe that you developed a friendship with, or that you just really enjoyed playing with during your career?
Yeah, there's definitely a handful of players that stick out in my mind. One in particular, I like Joe Thornton. He was a very honest, stand-up guy, and he started off in a role similar to mine, and he took off, and excellent player, all-around player, but he had the respect and a good relationship, and we still talk now to the day. So a guy like that, Joe Thornton, and another one that sticks out in my mind is Timo Solani. He just treated everybody with respect. He never had a big head on his shoulders. He treated a rookie like a veteran, and just a super nice guy.
My last question is, what is one piece of advice you'd like to give to young hockey players?
Well, for me, it was, never give up, never say no. You don't have to be the best player on every team to succeed. You just have to play your part, along with having fun. For me, it was work hard and listen, because those things go so far. With me coaching now, it makes even more sense, because I would rather take a kid that listened and wanted to work harder and wanted to get the information than someone who thinks they have all the information.
Mike, well, thank you again for taking the time to talk with me and to share your memories about your career.
Yeah, no problem.
And thank you all for listening to the Puck Junk Hockey Podcast. Be sure to subscribe to us on iTunes, Google Play Music, or wherever you find your favorite podcasts. Until next time, I'm Sal Barry.
For more hockey goodness, follow us on Twitter @PuckJunk.